Well, good evening, everybody. It's a pleasure to be back. George Morgan here at your service. It's PSGL, it's Wednesday night, it's Spain tonight as well. Lots on the table, lots of battling. The title contest is still alive and kicking. And Jack, it's only taken us 10 rounds. We're on the 11th. It's all to play for.
Boromant goes on the inside and takes the lead on the final lap of the race. Now it's side by side between Boromant and Warner, but Boromant's got the inside.
Literally a guest star here in this phenomenal race. Cameron Dowd looking to take P2 in his very first PSGL F1 PC race. Incredible to say the least. You see that Putin still lead. 1.5 seconds. DRS is the name.
Alright, hello everyone, welcome back. It's that time of the week, it's time for some more PSGL today. We arrive at Silverstone for the third round in this season 34. I am your race commentator, More Games, and glad to be bringing you some more action, this time on the PC side of things. And as you can see on your screens, it is the championship standings coming out of the second round of this season. Currently leading the way is Lillian with 24 points, but it is very, very close between the top six, as Meyer, Sprogus, Dimas, Violo and Santa Maria are all within just 10 points of one another. So it is very, very close in this early stage of the season. It was a win last time out for Lillian, with Violo and Santa Maria both getting themselves onto the podium. We'll have to see if we see a similar performance today, although, as it has been for the last 2 rounds, we've had 6 different podium runners in 2 rounds. So maybe we'll see a similar result today. So we are now going to hop straight in to the qualifying session. And here we are at the Silverstone circuit, and it is an overcast day here today. Hopefully that doesn't mean rain for this qualifying session, as I'm sure the drivers wouldn't appreciate that too much. But we can now see who is out and getting ready for their first lap times of the session. Currently looks like one of the Williams drivers is out on circuit, and that would be Silly Sly Guy for Outplayed Racing. And he is coming into the middle, or the final sector, I should say, of the lap time, and preparing for the very first time of the session. Well, hopefully the first time of the session, because invalidations, they're tricky at every circuit, but this one in particular does stand out for the difficulty of keeping your car within the white line. So we'll have to see how Silly Sly Guy fares, but he is coming out of the final turn of the lap time and getting ready for his first flying lap of the session through turn number 1 completely flat out, carrying that 8th gear through there, and then into turn number 3, getting very close to that sausage curb on the inside, but you don't want to hit it, as that can really unsettle your car, since these sausage curbs have been raised on the new game for this British circuit. We come out of turn number 5 now, down this DRS straight, getting very, very fast as we head into this long left-hander, followed by a very long right-hander of turn number 7, staying nice and close to this inside line before really opening up the steering and allowing your car to go to the outside of the circuit, really using the exit curb to your advantage. Getting ready for Cop's turn now as you really try to carry as much speed as possible. You can see shifting down to 7th gear and really revving it out as you try to carry almost 280 kilometers through there. And now we head through Maggots and Beckett's, getting ready for this turn number 15, which he takes quite nicely coming down this DRS straight now. And we'll have to see. This is obviously going to be the benchmark for the session, and everyone else is going to have to try and beat this time that Silly Sly guy does set, because he is looking good so far. Not invalidated lap time as of yet, but you can see through turn number 16 that was, and big slide of the rear end. Thankfully keeps it on circuit and across the line to 1:24.999 for Silly Sly guy. And that will be the fastest lap of the session so far. Obviously, it's the first lap time too. And you can see TF10 Harry is just behind him there in P2. Only a 10th between them so far. But plenty of lap times yet to be set. And there you go, Tubach, who goes to P1 by 1/1000th of a second already. We've only seen 3 lap times onto the board, and we're already seeing a difference of just 1/1000th between the drivers. But that gets quickly displaced by Alekes, who goes to P1 with a 1:24.8, currently the fastest in the session. We'll see if we can find someone else here. Dimas, the man who has been on the podium once this season. Let's see if he can do it again, but first he's got to qualify well in this session as he heads through these first couple of turns of Maggots and Beckett's, getting ready for the final sector of the lap time. Out of here now with the DRS wide open. We'll see exactly what he can do as he gets ready for Stowe turn. Really tricky one, this one. You have to get it very right, making sure you hit the late apex just like that, and then using that exit curve but not overstepping the boundaries. That's a very easy way to invalidate your lap time, which is not at all what you want to be doing. Out of the final turn of turn number 18, across the line to 24.939, and that puts him 1/10 behind our provisional poleman of Juventus Racing Alekes. And currently it's a Juventus Racing 1-2 between the Alfa Romeo and the Red Bull Racer. But if we look a little bit further down for drivers who are yet to set lap times in the session, our championship leader Lillian is heading into turn number 6 and 7 now, and he's starting his lap time a bit later than everyone else, so approaching a bit of a different strategy compared to the rest of the field, and really leaving it late in an attempt to avoid some of the traffic from the first runners in the session. And he is now coming through Cop's turn, really taking it quite nicely. As you see, the main strategy through there is to rev out that 7th gear as much as you possibly can, and in an attempt to use a bit of engine braking to slow you down rather than using the brakes. But you can see Molnar has just gone to P3 with a 24.939, so no longer are the drivers separated by just 1/1000th of a second. They're now setting identical lap times on their banker times, so hopefully a sign of things to come for later in the session. But Lillian is heading through the final 3 turns of the circuit. He's gone a little bit deep there into turn number 16, but ending off this lap time, where will it place him? Nice and tight line to the line, and it's a 24.978, and one of 5 drivers to set a 24.9 puts him P4 in the session and on the provisional second row of the field. And most drivers have now set a lap time. You can see Ben Marples has actually DNF'd from the session. I'm not too sure what's happened with him, but maybe crashed out at some point in the circuit, I should say. He must have done on his original banker time, and that's not ideal whatsoever, unless of course he did get a qualifying ban, which is entirely possible. Not actually 100% sure. Actually, more to think about it, he probably does have a qualifying ban, and that's why he's out of the session. But Leo Lund is coming through Cop's turn now, one of 2 drivers who are yet to set a lap time in a session. Himself and Marek are the only 2 drivers without a lap time onto the board, so he needs to make sure that he gets a decent banker time up here and really get close to those 1-minute 24-second lap times, where it seems those most of the drivers are hovering there or thereabouts. So he'll now come through Stowe turn to see exactly where he can place himself in this field, which is tightly compacted so far in the early stages of this session. But now, through turn number 16, 17, and the final flat-out turn of turn number 18, where's Leo Lund going to place himself? Across the lines at 24.836, and that puts him on the provisional front row of the field, and missing out on that pole position by just 22 one-thousandths of a second. So currently, extremely close between everyone. I must say, not only the top two, but the entire field. It's not many tenths separating these guys, so extremely impressive to see from them so far. So now you can see most drivers have set their original bankers in the session. It's now time to move on to their second laps, although for Marek, he still got to set his first time, so we're right on board with him through the final sector of his first lap time of the session in this bright blue Alpine, heading through the final 2-3 turns. But you can see that's a massive rear lockup there for Marek, and that has cost him quite a bit of time, you must say, out of the final turn. Now, it's not going to be the best of times, and it's actually the worst of times in the session so far, 25.7, but obviously that's probably down to that mistake through the final 3 turns. So seems that turn 16 is quite pesky for rear lockups. Really easy to lock up your wheels there, as we've seen it not only with Mark, but one of the other guys, and quite a few actually, have been locking up through that 16th turn. Hopefully for the driver's sakes, it's not a reoccurring theme. But we are now seeing more drivers beginning their second lap times of the session. He was the first man out at the start of the session. He's now the first man out for the second lap time. It's Silly Sly Guy in the Williams. His first lap was good enough for P7 at this stage of the session. And even if he only finds just a couple of 100ths of a second, and for reference, that's maybe getting a slightly better exit out of one turn or two. If he can improve by that much, he'll be shooting himself possibly all the way up to the top 3. So goes to show what little improvement you need to get yourself up the order, but it's about finding that improvement, because you can find improvement on your lap, but you can also make mistakes, just like Silly Sly Guy can through turn number 15 there, or turn number 14 I should say, and that has caused him to abandon this lap time. So even if you do have to try to find those extra 100s, but you also have to focus on not making mistakes like that, as that can lose you valuable data possibly in the session, as obviously if you have a good time on the board, that gives you a delta for the rest of the session. So yeah, Silly Sly Guy making a mistake like that, he's going to pull it back into the pit lane. He might only be setting one more lap time in this session, as there is only 7 minutes to go now, but we're seeing the McLaren man of Meyer coming out of turn number 18 now, and he is going to cross the line. Where would he place himself? 24.9, that's P5, and a tenth of improvement from Meyer. That shoots him up a pretty impressive 4 positions for just 1/10 of a second, and he puts himself between those guys who have set 1 minute 24.9 second lap times. Let's see who else is currently on a lap. Looks like our current provincial pole man, Elekes, is on a lap. He's 24.814 was his original banker time in the session, but he is now coming through the final sector of his lap. Can he now improve that lead that he has out in front? A little bit sketchy there out of turn number 17 across the line, and that has cost him improvement. He does not improve. In fact, he's 1.5 tenths down on his time, so maybe Aleka is just finding a magical lap time at the start of the session. It's going to be hard for him to improve on that. We see Harry go into P3 with a 24.8, and just behind him it's Jeremy with a 24.9, getting himself onto the provisional second row of the field. But a lot of guys are improving out there. Dimas is one of them, as he heads through the final 3 turns, as we seem to keep coming back to. And across the line, it's a tenth of improvement, and he gets closer and closer to that provisional pole time set by Aleka, as he goes ahead of Leo Lund by 3 1,000ths of a second. And now the McLaren man is going to have to respond. Currently, the McLaren of Leo Lund, he's only set 1 lap time in this session. It seems like he's only going to be able to set 2 total, as there is only 5 minutes and a half left to go, as most other drivers are going to have the opportunity to set 3 lap times in the session. So you can see most drivers have now set their second lap times. We see the Ferrari man of Batch go up to P6. Molnar has come back into pit lane because he's obviously made a mistake on that lap. In fact, he has invalidated this lap, and that's why he's pulled it back into the pit lane. currently one of the only drivers, himself and Noel Carmen, currently on a lap time, as Lillian getting a very nice slipstream here off of that's the AlphaTauri, so his teammate, obviously working together, the two VRM guys, the two esports teammates, and the two teammates in the AlphaTauri team in this PC F4 division, making sure that they improve the most they possibly can by working together. So this should be a good lap time from Lillian, and it is a very good lap time because he goes to provisional pole position with a 1:24.800. It's Lillian who's currently out in front ahead of Alekes, and since Alekes wasn't able to improve upon that time, he's now lost that position at the top of the field in this qualifying session. So Lillian, our championship leader, he was the man who won last time out, and he's now winning in this qualifying session. Let's see if he can keep it that way though, because we still have enough time for one more lap time for each of the drivers. So everyone is going to be gunning for that pole position spot, and when I mean everyone, I mean it quite literally, because if you look all the way down even to P16, only 0.6 of a second behind, and it might not seem like much in real life, but obviously when you're in a PC F4 division like this, that is a gargantuan margin to have. So yeah, 0.6 of a second, it goes by just like that. But when you're trying to improve upon your lap time and go faster than someone else, it seems like an absolute eternity, and the amount of mistakes that you can make in between those 0.6 is really what makes a difference. But everyone pulling themselves back into the pit lane. Lillian, the last man out on circuit, and he is now going to come back into the pits for a fresh set of soft compound tires so that he can go for another lap time in the session and get ready for what will hopefully be the pole time in this session. It is going to be quite an ask from him, but he's in a very good spot right now, so hopefully he can just find that little bit more, unlike Alekes, who obviously set that really good lap time at the start of the session and then struggled to find improvement later on his second lap. So it's going to be interesting to see how it all develops. So the drivers now making their way out of the pit lane for the final time in the session, and this is the decisive moment where we are going to see what driver is going to be on pole position and exactly where everyone else can place themselves. And the first man out on circuit is the Aston Martin of Simone Violo, and he is currently in the Aston Martin 4 Outplayed Racing. He is coming out of turn number 8 here, getting ready to set this final lap time, and this is the moment in the qualifying session where the nerves really start to set in, and when you're battling for a couple of 100ths of a second, if you just twitch just a little bit and make a tiny mistake, that could lose you all of your improvements. So you need to stay quite calm in the qualifying session. Obviously it's a video game, so you might not expect that, but when you're racing at a level like this, it is very easy to get nerves and make mistakes when you're trying to improve. So we'll have to see how these guys handle it now, and who is going to improve. Will anyone make more mistakes as we've seen so far in the session? Will they not be able to improve? And if you don't, you're probably going to fall quite a way down the order as everyone else goes ahead of you. But let's see Violo now. He's getting ready for slow turn on his outlap and really trying to get some temperature into these soft compound tires. Obviously, the tire temperatures have been a big talking point on the F1 22 game, and continue to be on this new game. Really important that you get them up to temperature on your outlap, as they do start off quite cold coming out of the pit lane. But Violo now is getting ready for turn number 1, which he takes completely flat out in his green Aston Martin, getting ready for turn 3. Now let's see how he takes it, in a bit of a late apex there, trying to set himself up for this fourth turn, which he takes really nice. You can see trying to get as close as possible to those red sausage curbs, but you do not want to touch them, as I've mentioned before, so making sure to stay away from them. But now getting ready for Luffield here, and you can see just missing that apex of turn number 6, because you want to carry the speed as you get ready for the 7th turn. So it's all about compromise and finding which turns do you have to sacrifice to get a better exit out of another. And Violo knows exactly what he's doing as he heads through the middle sector of the lap time, and now he's got to think which turns is he going to have to sacrifice through Maggots and Beckett's, really cutting that first apex there and doing it the same for the second, but then riding that one a little bit less as he gets ready for the exit of turn number 14. And he is now finding improvement. He's a tenth and a half up, and currently that will put him quite close to the provisional pole time set by Lillian. So even if you're down in P11, you still have a chance to battle for that pole position. Let's see what Violo can do. He's got 3 more turns to go. No room for error here as he takes a lot of speed through there, looking really good so far. Can he get close to that provisional pole time? Across line to 24.657 from Violo, and that is absolutely clear of Lillian. City Saigai isn't too far behind, just a couple of 100ths of a second, and that goes to show the amount that this circuit is beginning to ramp up now. And it looks like Dimas goes up to P3 with a 24.7, but Violo and City Saigai, they are the big winners so far after being so far down the order. They are now P1 and P2. Alekes, it is his opportunity to now improve on that 24.814 that he said at the beginning of the session. Definitely wants to get a lot closer to that P1 that he was in at the start. He's currently P7. Can he improve that now? Coming out of turn number 18, across line to 24.8. He cannot improve again, so he must have just found something special in that first lap. Let's see what Lillian can do. Our championship leader, currently P6 and a tenth and a half away from that provisional pole time. I don't know if he's going to be able to get this, but across line to 24.8. He does not improve on his time. And that is now the end of the session. I believe our man for pole position today is going to be Violo as he gets that pole position for Outplayed Racing. The top 5 separated by less than a tenth of a second. That is how close it is here in this PC F4 division. But it is Violo in P1 with City Saigai right behind him. On the front row of the field, Noel Carmen and Molnar take up the 4th. Sprogus and Demas are on the 6th. Lillian lines up alongside Alekes on the 4th. Jeremy and Lund on the 5th. Meyer and Hubach on the 6th. It's Harry and Golo on the 7th. Santa Maria and Korapi on the 8th. Marek and Marples line up on the 9th and final row of the field, as Marples with his qualifying ban starts at the very back of the field in his Red Bull for Thomas Enge Sim Racing. So that is your qualifying order, and now just a quick word from our main title sponsor, GT Omega. And that is the main title sponsor of PSGL, GT Omega. And you can use the code PSGL at checkout for 5% off of any order. So make sure to go do that if you are looking for a good sim racing cockpit. But here we are at Silverstone for the race itself. And as you can see on your screens, it is raining for this Grand Prix. And that is going to cause some unneeded difficulty for the drivers, and they're now going to have to deal with for this Grand Prix, which is going to be a bit of a struggle for them. But as you can see, we now have 4 and 5 red lights. They are gone, and we are away, getting ready for this British Grand Prix. What kind of size it for our pole man of Violo? It's a good one coming into turn number 1, but let's see behind him, because City Saigai is under pressure from Carmen, who's going up to P2 now. Can he hold on to it though with the outside line at turn number 3? He's gone extremely deep there into the 3rd turn. This might lose him a position to the Haasman of FBR Sprogus as he tries to get past the Mercedes and does so successfully. He's now into the slipstream of the Williams of City Saigai. It's been a good start for Violo though, as he's 5 tenths out in front. But you can see Sprogus attempting to go to the inside line of City Saigai. A little bit of contact almost between the two of them as they head through turn number 7. And Sprogus compromising his line to try and make a move on City Saigai. Almost loses the position to Noel Carlman behind. But Carlman is going to stay there for now. You can see there's been quite a few position changes in the midfield also. But Sprogus is all over the back of Silly Side Guy as it stands. Let's see if he can find his way past, because he's currently gained 2 positions off of the race start after starting P5. It's been a brilliant start for Sprogus, and maybe a bit of a wet weather master on our hands as he comes out of turn number 14 in the slipstream, using the overtake button as much as he can down the straight. He might try to send one into here. See, Sly Guy leaves the room on the inside line, doesn't want to get absolutely sent by the hash driver, and once again he's going to leave the room into turn number 16, and Silly Sly Guy driving quite passively, doesn't want to be taken out in this first lap, but he does give Sprogus the big squeeze coming out of turn number 17. Violo sets the fast lap of the Grand Prix, leading after lap 1. And Sprogus, once again, he's just looking for any opportunity. It's wet weather conditions where it's so hard to overtake. He's going to try to send it once again from so far back into turn number 3. Silly Side Guy, just make sure he's placing his car right, taking the right lines, but you can only do that so much because Sprogus has gone for exit over entry, gone for the switchback maneuver. He's disrupted Silly Side Guy's line, and now Side Guy is going to have the outside line for this 6th turn. He's really trying to hold on to this P3, but there's only so much he can do with Sprogus on the back of him. And Sprogus, he's gone deep there into that 7th turn. Silly Side Guy looked for an opportunity to go for the switchback, but sadly the space just was not there. And currently 9/10 between Sprogus and Violo, so quite a big gap between them already. And that is from all the battling that Sprogus has had to endure up to this point. There's been some overtakes in the background as well, as Dimas was able to get past Molnar, put himself into a top 5 position. And you can see one man who hasn't gained or lost anything so far is Lillian, one of the only drivers yet to gain or lose a position. He's currently P7, our championship leader, a bit lower than he would like to be. Has not finished outside of the top 4 this season, and I'm sure he'll be hoping to keep that up. But that's a Haskar of Golo trying to battle with Alekes, who are currently battling for P9 in the session. Golo right beside the Alfa Romeos. They bang side pods against one another as we have a terrible camera angle, but Golo has that outside line for turn number 16, turns to the inside for both 17 and 18, and you can see Santa Maria is trying to go past the both of them. He gets past the Alfa Romeo, but Golo holds on to that position. The two FBR teammates don't want to battle each other too hard, but Santa Maria is still going to try to make the move as he goes to the inside to turn number 3. That's a big send, goes nice and deep, and is able to get past Golo quite quickly there, as Santa Maria, the biggest gainer in the field off of these first 2 laps. He's gained 6 positions after starting P15 in the field, so the FBR man has had a very good start to his Grand Prix. Golo is now defending from Alekes on the outside line. We've got a good view here from Karapi, who's also going to try to make a maneuver as he looks to the outside line of Alekes. He's following in the slipstream of Golo as he has a bit of wheel spin out of turn number 7. Alekes and Golo are still side by side heading out of turn number 8, getting ready for cops. Now surely this can't end well. One of them is going to have to back out, but neither of them does. They're still side by side through cops turn, carrying so much speed through there, and they're racing nice and cleanly. Now Maggots and Pickets, how are they still side by side through this middle sector? As you can see, Golo going deep, hitting into the side of Alekes, but Alekes is not giving up, and he gets the position on Golo. But how long will it last? Because Golo is right there alongside Karapi. Marples is trying to get in on this battle. He's right behind these 3. Karapi with the inside line for Stowe turn, and it looks like they might almost be 3 wide heading onto the exit, but it looks like Golo is not able to pull alongside Alekes just yet, so he sends one into turn number 16, getting all over that sausage curb. And now Marples is attempting to get past these guys quite quickly. You can see he's side by side on the outside of Karapi, and that's a big slide for Golo, almost losing the car here. Alekes tries to find a way past, but you can see it's contact between Marples and Alekes as Alekes goes a little bit slower through that first turn. Karapi almost loses the car completely as Marples is on the inside for turn number 3. Alekes attempting to hold on to this P11 position, but Marples is not giving up. He started in P13 at the start of this battle. He's now trying to move up to P11 all over the back of the Alfa Romeo, using the slipstream to his advantage as he burns the ERS down this straight, getting ready for the inside line of turn number 6. He's got the later braking, he's got the confidence, and he gets past the Alfa Romeo of Alekes. And I don't think this is the end of the battle for P10 in this Grand Prix, and it might only be P10, but they are putting on quite a show for us as now Marples is going to get past Golo. It's been 3 moves in just about a lap's time, And that is fantastic racecraft from Marples, who finds himself in a top 10 position and a points-paying position. My oh my, that was quite a battle that we've just seen there between the Red Bull, the Haas, the Alfa Romeo and the Mercedes, and I'm sure that is going to continue, but we better set our eyes closer to the front of the field. You can see Sprogus is right on the back of Violo, hanging in to that 1 second range. Excuse me, but obviously DRS is not enabled in these wet conditions, so Sprogus is going to just have to hang behind and doesn't really gain any advantage apart from a small advantage from the slipstream. Meanwhile, there's been some battling in the top of the field that I've sadly missed, but obviously I'm sure you can't blame me after what a fantastic battle that was that we just witnessed. Noel Carman is now at the front of what would be a DRS train in the dry. Currently isn't, as there's no DRS. He's 1.5 seconds away from the top two, and we see Dimas right behind him. He's gained 2 positions off the race start. So these Sly guys lost 3, so he must have made a mistake or just lost the positions to Carman and Dimas, and we've seen that it's definitely possible to make 2 moves in quite a short amount of time. Molnar is also in this battle. Leo Lund, Santa Maria, Lillian and Ben Marples is now trying to catch up, and Ben Marples actually, after making those overtakes, he's shown some great pace and he's brought that gap down from 1.9 to now 9/10 of a second. So Ben Marples showing some good pace. He's now the biggest gainer ahead of Santa Maria after his qualifying ban starting P18. He is now into the top 10 positions and in a point scoring position in the Grand Prix. So Marples obviously not starting from where he usually would, so maybe that's why we're seeing so many overtakes from the Red Bull man, and he's going to continue to do so as the Grand Prix continues on. A little bit further back, we obviously saw Alekes, Karapi and Golo still battling it out. Golo has actually dropped down now to P13. He was at the P10 at the start of this battle. He's now dropped behind Alekes and Karapi, who's slowly moving up the order. Alekes, though, the man who started in P8, he's now down in P11, and he was even in P1 at the start of the qualifying session, but obviously that sadly could not last for him, as he couldn't find improvement on that banker time, as Golo almost losing the car there through turn number 17. And these wet conditions also obviously present a bit of a struggle and a challenge for these drivers, as it is extremely hard to control your car, especially with the lockups that you have to deal with through the turns. Very easy to go deep, and traction might be easier on this game, but when you throw a bit of water onto the circuit, you start to see drivers lose the back end that bit more, as we see Karapi on the back of Alekes. These guys losing quite a bit of time to Marples ahead of them, and just not able to keep up with the pace of the Red Bull currently. But you see Hubach has just set the fast up the Grand Prix, but that's because he's had to make an unscheduled pit stop in this race, and then that quickly gets beaten by Meyer, who goes to a 134.894. He's currently down in P16. But we can now take a look at the tyre choices. Well, it's quite obvious what the tyre choices are, but we can see what the wear is for all the drivers. So no one in the top 14 has come into the pit lane, but you can see starting with Hubach in P15, he had to make an unscheduled pit stop at the start of this Grand Prix, obviously for a broken front wing. He's in the same boat as Meyer, Harry and Marek, so both of the Ferraris in that in a couple of instances at the start of the Grand Prix. And it's always a shame to break your front wing at the start of a race, but these are wet conditions. Safety car is definitely a possibility, but thankfully in 7 laps of intermediate wet weather running, we have not seen any DNFs, so no major incidents as of just yet. So drivers keeping it nice and clean, as we saw with the battle for a P10 when Golo and Alekes went side by side all the way through the middle sector of lap time and through this very turn here through Maggots and Beckett's. So the drivers are definitely respect each other and know how much space to leave for one another, which is always what you like to see in league racing. But we're now seeing Leo Lund is making the move on Molnar, who's made an interesting decision. Molnar decides it's not worth fighting. He drops behind the McLaren of Leo Lund. We're also seeing Karapi once again on the back of Alekes. This battle for P11 continues between the Mercedes and the Alfa Romeo. Karapi almost pushing Alekes through that 7th turn there, which is not what you want to do in the wet weather conditions. And Karapi tries to go to the outside, but Alekes just taking the regular racing line, and Karapi hitting into the back of him. We're now seeing Ben Marples make a maneuver on Lillian, and he's got himself up into P9. The Red Bull just slowly but surely he's making progress, and soon enough he could be up the order quite a bit. See, Sly Guy has made an error. That's out of turn number 14, out of the final turn of Maggots and Beckett's, and he has now lost all of the positions that he got in qualifying, and obviously he lost a bit off of the start of the Grand Prix, so he now falls all the way down to P13, and that's a shame to see, but mistakes like that are common in these wet conditions, and now the Williams driver, he's just going to have to focus on what's ahead of him, continue to push and hope for the best in this race. But a mistake like that definitely is going to cost you quite an opportunity at scoring. I think it was a top 5 position he was battling for before that incident. We're now seeing a battle for P6 as Santa Maria sends one into turn number 4, and because of that, Molnar has now lost another position. This time it's the Marples, and was it the right strategy to let Leo Lund pass them into turn number 6? We'll have to think about that later, as Dimas is going side by side with Carlman through turn number 7 here. He's got the outside line, which sadly is not going to quite work out for him, and he's going to have to hang behind in the slipstream, but for how long? He's very, very close coming into Copstern, but he's not going to pull out the slipstream just yet, making him move into Copstern, as we've seen with Max Verstappen and Lewis Hamilton in real life, is always a risky maneuver. So Dimas, he's not going to risk it for now. These guys are in a bit of a battle of their own at 2.6 seconds in front of them and 2 seconds behind them. They have got a little bit of time to play with, so they can really just focus on themselves, and obviously Dimas doesn't have to worry about pressure from Leo Lund behind, but if he does battle too much, that pressure might increase from the McLaren driver. So we'll see Leo Lund having difficulties through Stowe Turn as he has to head off of the circuit after obviously making a mistake by carrying too much speed. But he now comes through turn number 17 and 18. He is still in that P5 position ahead of Santa Maria. We're seeing Alekes come into the pit lane, and Golo follows him in. This is on lap 8, or at the end of lap 8, I should say. And what is this for now? Is this for wing damage, or is it starting to dry up on circuit? The rain is still falling down. It doesn't look as heavy, but these guys are coming in for intermediate tires on lap 8 of 26, and I think that's because, I'm not too sure, it's been quite a while. I don't think I've actually ever commentated on a race in the wet on F1 23, but I do believe hearing somewhere that the wear on the wet weather tire is quite extreme, and it usually leads to 2 and maybe even 3 stop Grand Prix, so that could be the reason that that's happened. I'm not 100% sure if that's right. Obviously I myself haven't done a league race on this game. It's been a very long time since I have, but yeah, I think that is an issue with this game, that the wet weather tires do wear a lot quicker than the dry compound tire. Obviously we'll find out soon enough whether or not that is the case, because we're going to see the likes of Violo and Sprogus come into the pit lane if the tire wear is really that bad. So let's see. Violo, he's going to skip past the pit lane for now. So it doesn't look like he's struggling with tire wear just yet. So maybe Alekes and Golo were struggling a bit more than others. So obviously on the last game you would usually come in at the halfway point in the race, which in this case would be lap 13. So who knows, maybe Alekes and Golo, maybe that tire wear glitch isn't a thing anymore, and maybe they're just going for a massive undercut, which could be a possibility, but from previous games the undercut on wet tires doesn't make too much of a difference, since the wet tires don't wear as much. But maybe that's new for this game. Of course, this, like I've said before, is my first time commenting on a wet race, so only time will tell us. But Lillian is one man who's come into the pit lane, along with the Williams of City Sly Guy's teammate Jeremy has just gotten a 3-second time penalty. He's currently in P10 after some drivers have boxed, but that 3-second time penalty might drop back. Currently the gap behind him is 14.4 seconds, but he's still got a pit stop to make. We're seeing Silly Sly Guy. He's come out of the pit lane now, and he is going to come out behind of Golo, it seems, as he might come out behind Meyer. Is he going to come out behind Harry as well? Silly Sly Guy dropping quite a bit as he goes to the inside line of Harry through turn number 3. Harry having to go off of the circuit there as he dives back on through turn number 4. Silly Sly Guy, though, that was quite calculated from the Williams, predicted it happening, as he obviously saw Harry go off of the circuit, and then sets up a clean switchback move. Does Silly Sly Guy. So he's done a good job there. He's in P16 now, a lot lower where then he'd obviously expect to be before that mistake out of the final turn of Maggots and Beckett's. But we're now seeing more drivers come into the pit lane. That's Sprogus, who was just boxed for the intermediates, obviously, and he is one of the first of the top 5 drivers come into pit lane. He was P2 before he boxed. He's now going to come out quite a bit further behind, probably in P10 if I had to guess, unless of course the undercut is a lot more powerful on the intermediates than I do believe. But we see Lillian is only coming into turn 16 now, so I think Sprogus will most likely come out ahead of Lillian, and pretty comfortably too, as Lillian was around that P7 position. Meanwhile, Sprogus was in P2. So Sprogus comes out quite a bit ahead of Lillian, and obviously those are the only two guys, those are the leading 2 drivers who have boxed in this Grand Prix. We're seeing a battle here, or no, we actually saw a mistake, I believe, from Molnar, because he lost a position there to Karapi. And maybe he's struggling a bit with tyre wear, because you can see he's sliding all over the place on these intermediate compounded tyres. So maybe the tyre wear is a lot worse than I think. And yeah, Molnar is really struggling on these inters. You can see he's actually got 100% ERS, so he hasn't been pushing recently, but he has lost a lot of time. And I'm not too sure what's going on. Has he got a... I don't believe he has a puncture, as he'd probably be going a lot slower. And I have absolutely no clue what's going on, but maybe a setup related issue as he's sliding through every single turn, struggling to hit an apex, as we now see more drivers come into the pit lane. Marples just about overtakes Leo Lund before coming into the boxes, and everyone making sure that they don't hit into the back of one another. But you can see Dimas, one of the only men to stay out on circuit on the intermediate compounded tyre. But that's a retirement. Golo has just crashed out of the session, and that is on the exit of Stowe Turn. We should get a view with the AlphaTari of Jeremy and Golo behind him there. And yeah, it must have just been a snap of oversteer through Copse Turn, and when you're in wet conditions like that, that is going to absolutely kill you in the race. And well, that's exactly what it's done to Golo. So he's crashed out, and that's our first retirement of the session. A shame to see, after the great performance and the great battle that he put on between himself, Alekes, Marples, and also the Mercedes man of Karapi. But this means big things now, that the safety car has been released. As you can see, Lillian, I believe it was Lillian and Sprogus, were the 2 drivers who came in before the safety car was released. You can see this safety car, not what Sprogus would have been hoping for, as he's lost the position to Carmen. Carmen was about 2.6 to 3 seconds behind Sprogus before the safety car, but obviously with this new development, as Sprogus came in without the safety car conditions, he's now lost that position to the Mercedes man. So a shame to see that that's happened to him. But he's one of the only drivers who really lost positions, although, as I say that, Lillian has probably lost a position or 2 because of this safety car, as he was another driver who came in before the safety car. Molnar, though, did come in during the safety car, and actually Dimas and Karapi might actually benefit the most from this, as the guys who were in the pit lane last lap, they had about half of their pit time in under safety car conditions, so maybe that was why. Maybe this means that the top 2 will gain even more time. So we'll see what happens as Karapi, Dimas not getting a move on. Karapi tries to overtake him into the pit lane as Dimas has to go onto the grass. Has Dimas got a puncture here? I don't actually know how to look back on on the PC. I'm sorry about that, but I do believe Dimas has got a puncture after just 11 laps of wear, and that's exactly why. Yeah, you can see that's the right rear there. He's got a puncture on. That's after 11 laps of wear. So the intermediate wear is extremely high on this new game. So Karapi obviously tried to overtake since Dimas had a puncture, but it didn't work out. Crappy now has a 5-second time penalty, which is pretty much, well, it's not ruined his race. Well, let's not say that, but if he does get into the top 10, it's going to be difficult to maintain a position, especially since there is a safety car out on circuit, which means he's going to drop back even further. But look at this. Dimas has actually lost the most time, even though he was the man who boxed after the safety car was fully released. Everyone else had half of their pit time under safety car conditions, but Dimas has dropped all the way from I believe it was top 5 or top 6, now down to P10. I'm not sure how that's probably happened because of the puncture that he got himself. So that's a shame to see for Dimas. He's lost a lot because of that puncture and this safety car. And we're just lucky that the safety car did come out, because if it didn't, he would have gotten a puncture under green flag running, and that is what would have ended his race. So he's still in this Grand Prix, still going to be racing hard. He's just got to make up a few more positions after probably a bad call on the strategy, you must say, as the going out while your tires are in that type of puncture territory is always a risky play. Sadly, the risk did not work out for him. So the safety car will be coming in on the end of lap 14, which is next lap, because we're still waiting for some of the drivers to catch up. But while we do that, we can actually take a look here at the drivers and see exactly where they have themselves placed. So we have Violo at the front of the field, as he has been for most of the Grand Prix. Noel Carlman has gained a position. He's now in P2, as obviously he was able to overtake Sprogus while they were because Sprogus boxed when the safety car was not released, and that's why we see Carlman ahead of him. And then behind them we have Ben Marples in P4, qualifying ban for the DES Red Bull man, and yet he has gained 14 positions in this Grand Prix. He came into this race obviously thinking that qualifying ban was not going to stop him from trying to win this one, and he is putting on an exceptional performance so far. We've seen the racecraft that he has had on display today, and hopefully we'll see it again in his conquest for a podium in this race. Right behind him, though, we have Leo Lund, who's gained 5 positions, and Santa Maria, who's gained 9. So it looks like most of the drivers in the top 6 started outside of the top 6. So very interesting to see. You can see the top half of the grid are in the green net positions wise, but at the back of the grid everyone is in the red. So we have Carlman, Sprogus, Marples, Lund, Santa Maria, Carapi all in the green, and then Lillian still in that P7 position. Looks like he's just been binded to that P7 position ever since he qualified there. But then behind we have Alekas, who's lost 1 position. Dimas has lost 4 positions because of that puncture. Molnar's lost 7 positions because of the mistake that he made before coming into the pit lane. Silly Sly Guy because of the mistake out of turn number 14, which we are about to approach. Jeremy has lost 4 positions, and he's also got himself a 3-second time penalty. Silly Sly Guy has a 3-second time penalty, and Karapi has 5 seconds. Hubach, after boxing at the start of the Grand Prix for a broken front wing, he's lost 2. Myers lost 4 after boxing at the start. Mark's actually gained 1 because he started at the back row of the field, and Harry is down 4. So a lot of drivers have actually been caught up in instance. I think almost every single driver who is in the red has either made a mistake, broke a front wing, or something along those lines. So that's exactly why they've lost a position. So everyone in the top 8 keeping it consistent and making sure that they don't make any mistakes that would lose them positions. But the safety car is into the pit lane. Violo will be leading us away for this safety car restart, and now is the time to go for him. He's actually gone over that red sausage curb there, but that has not affected his safety car restart. He is still a decent margin ahead of Carlman, 5/10 to be exact. Well, that's now 4/10 as to get ready for turn number 1 flat out through here, as it's a little bit slower obviously in the wet, as you do actually have to lift off in the wet conditions. But so far, no position switching, although as I say that, here's the first position change of the safety car restart. Dimas is going to move his way up the order after losing all those positions. He has got his sights set on making as many overtakes as possible. Karapi with the 5-second time penalty ahead of Lillian, and Lillian finally separated from that P7 position, but in the wrong way because he's gone down to P8 now. We're seeing a battle with Silly Sly Guy. He's on the outside line of Molnar here through turn number 7. Cannot hold on to that, and he might actually lose a position here because Jeremy is on his inside as he makes a mistake getting on the traction. A bit too early contact between the two of them. Jeremy has the inside line for Cops. How is this going to end out between the two of them? Silly Sly Guy decides it's not worth it, but actually they both go deep into Cops' turn, both going off the circuit, and both of them lose positions because of that. Silly Sly Guy going down to P15. He won't be happy with the absolute send that he saw from Jeremy there. And now Jeremy might lose another position here as Meyer is on the back of him. We're also seeing a move a bit further ahead. Molnar is getting past Alekis. Alekis falls down to P11 now as the Alpine has moved himself into a point scoring position as he almost goes off the circuit. That might be a warning. Here is a warning though. For certain it's Marek with a 3-second time penalty. Jeremy is getting caught up in all sorts of battles as Meyer is now still trying to overtake him. Hubach was actually able to get ahead of him. Jeremy still battling with Meyer here, and we'll see. He's got the inside line for the first turn of the circuit, but you can see how committed Jeremy is. Actually takes a perfect line through there to defend this P13 position. Stays ahead of Meyer for now, but how long can he hold on to that? Obviously got 3 seconds of time penalty, so he's not really in a battle with Meyer as it stands. So we're now seeing Ben Marples on the back of Sprogus here. Started P18 in the field today after a qualifying ban. Now he's looking for a podium, so he looks at that outside line for the entry of the first turn of Maggots and Beckett. Sadly though, Sprogus has gotten a decent exit out of Cop, so he's able to hold on to that. But Sprogus knows he's got this pressure from Ben Marples behind. This is a good exit here from the Red Bull man and an opportunity to promote himself into a podium position. Will he be able to do so? He's using that slipstream, trying to pull out of it to the inside line, but Sprogus has got a good defense here. How long will it last though? As it looks like Marples is almost infinite grip there as he heads through Stowe. I have no idea how he's pulled that off. He had a tighter line to Sprogus, and yet he still got the better exit. Marples, I should say. Obviously, a driver, very talented, knows exactly what he's doing, and he is now into the podium positions after starting P18. That is brilliant stuff to see from the Red Bull man. He's going to continue on his journey now and hopefully aim for P2 next. To currently ahead of him is Noel Carman in the Mercedes. In the other Mercedes, so it's Karapi who's lost a position to Dimas. And you can see Dimas is now up to P7, and it looks like this rain has no intention of slowing down, so it's going to be here for the rest of Grand Prix. Sprogus has lost another position. This time it's to Leo Lund, and this is surprising to see. Sprogus, who was in P2 quite comfortably as well before the pit stops, he is now all the way down into P5 after losing 2 positions in the space of just 1 lap time. So Sprogus maybe losing a bit of momentum, losing a bit of confidence as this race continues on. We'll have to see how that develops, but for now he's really got to pick it up and make sure that he doesn't lose any more positions. He's back to where he started, and that is P5. But one thing we should mention, Violo in P1. He hasn't gotten much screen time, and that's for the pure reason that he's been so far ahead of everyone else, putting on a Max Verstappen-esque performance here, and no one has been able to keep up with him. And he's led, I think, every lap so far, as we now see Karapi on the outside of Santa Maria. Karapi, that was a brilliant move there. Santa Maria tries to go for a switchback maneuver, but the PSR Mercedes man is able to get up into P7 and showing some good racecraft and awareness there. And currently Karapi is in a net P8 because Molnar is actually more than 3 seconds behind, although as I say that, it's a 5-second time penalty. So Karapi currently would drop down actually around P11 or so, maybe even P12. So he really needs to put some distance between himself and Molnar and use this train that he's currently in to try and pull away Ben Marples. is close to the back of Carmen, and as he begins to apply the pressure, he is going to try and make that move for P2 in the Grand Prix. He's done it 15 times already. He's now just got to try to do it 2 more times if he wants to get into the lead of this Grand Prix. So yeah, it looks like it's been a really good race so far for the Red Bull man. He's just got to continue up this road. He's got 8 laps of racing to try and get into the lead of the Grand Prix, but yeah, like I was saying about Violo before, we obviously saw a battle there between Carapi and Dimas. He's just putting on such a brilliant display here. Obviously very suited not only to the wet conditions but to the dry conditions as well, because he got that pole position and it felt like out of nowhere after being P11 for most of the session, then popping up to first place, and now he is dominating this Grand Prix. Not a single man has been able to challenge him. I don't think he's been overtaken once. So Violo is doing a really good job, and yeah, he is in that top 5 in the championships. He is in the battle. Hasn't gotten a win this season, but it looks like today might be the day. I do believe he has gotten a podium, as everyone in the top 6 in the championship has got a podium, as we had 6 different podium runners. But now Ben Marples is side by side with Carmen out of turn number 4. He's got the outside line of the Mercedes man. Will that work out for him though? He's got to use a bit of ERS, and he's got the pressure from now Leo on behind. He is trying to get involved in this battle. He's got the outside line of turn number 6 here, and Marples trying to get his nose alongside the rear wheels of Carmen, but he might lose the position to Leo Lund here. Lund on the inside of turn number 7 has not got the grip though, and for now they're getting closer and closer to making overtakes. But Carmen P2, Ben Marples P3, and Leo Lund in P4. But Marples is trying to displace Carmen through cops. Doesn't work out from just yet, and these guys are really going to be under a lot of pressure, because Dimas is right behind Sprogus, behind Leo Lund and Marples, all neck and neck with one another. It is extremely close. They're all right up each other's gearboxes. And who is going to make a move first though, as we see Leo Lund almost pulling out the slipstream. Marples trying to put his front wing alongside, cannot do so. Coming into turn 15, that's a mistake from Hubach, who's fallen down into P16. It's the same place where Silly Slide Guy made a mistake. It's the exit of turn number 14. And he now falls down to P16, down and at the back of the field, sadly. But we're focusing on this battle now for P3 in the field, and it is getting very, very close between these guys. But who is going to be the first man to make a move out of these drivers? Currently, we have Marples in that P3 position. He's been looking the most potent in this Grand Prix and the most capable of making maneuvers, but we're also seeing Dimas trying to make the move on Sprogus, and it actually looks like he's going to complete this move. And Sprogus almost loses the car there. He's got so much overspeed from absolutely nowhere, and he's being pulled alongside by Carapi on the outside line of turn number 6. The Mercedes driver attempting this move now. He's got the inside for the 7th turn of the circuit. Sprogus tries to hold on. Has he got the grip to do so? That's a slide at the rear end there from Carapi. It is so close between these guys, but Dimas losing 2 positions because of that. Sprogus trying to fight back here on the back of the Mercedes, but Carapi is up 11 positions. A similar performance to what we've seen from Marples so far, but that 5-second time penalty is really going to set him back. If only he had stayed behind Dimas coming into pit lane. Although I guess if he had done that, he'd probably be a lot further down the field. But he'd also be in a better net position, because Dimas is technically ahead of him after the time penalties are applied. So that 5-second time penalty, a big mistake from him, because he looks like he's got so much potential in this Grand Prix to go for a top 5 position, as he's gotten past Sprogus. Sprogus, another position lost. He's now defending from Dimas, who's got the inside line into turn number 16. Tries to go for a switchback through the 17th turn. Has he got the grip to do so though, as he has a bit of a slide out of 18. Sprogus holds on to that P6, but I have no idea what's happened to Sprogus. He's just been losing momentum ever since the pit stops, and he's just fallen all the way down to P6. But is tyre wear going to come into play here, as we take a look at the tyre wear? 9 laps of wear. Sprogus has 10 laps, and we saw, I believe Marples, it was 11 laps, and that was a puncture for him. So we might see one more stop in this Grand Prix. I believe the rain has almost completely stopped. No, it has not. My eyes playing tricks on me. The rain is still going and the circuit is still wet, so it's going to be wet for the rest of the race. But Marples is trying to stick his nose up the inside into turn number 7, And Carmen, obviously not expecting that, and Carmen owned the turn coming into there, didn't have to give Marples any room. Marples just trying anything they can to get past Carmen, but you can see Carmen is putting on quite the defense, making it tricky for Marples, and this is the first time now in quite a few laps where we see Marples struggling to make a maneuver on the driver ahead of him. And let's see now, coming out of turn number 15, can he finally make the move? No, he cannot. Carmen, I don't know how he's doing this, but he himself has also got some pace in the locker, so maybe P3 is where Marples belongs, but we cannot say that for sure, because we've got 5 laps of racing, and Sprogus is looking to defend against Santa Maria. Is about to lose another position, this time to his FBI teammate, as the Aston Martin has the outside line for turn number 17 and 18. Contact between the two of them. They need to be careful through here. Sprogus squeezes Santa Maria off of the circuit, and Sprogus holds that P7 position, but Sprogus, he was looking to score a P2. Now he'll be lucky to finish within the points paying positions at this rate, as he just continues to fall down the order. And actually, that might be due to the tyre, where he's on 11 lap old inters. Meanwhile, the two ahead of him are on 9 lap old, so they've got 2 laps of advantage. That might be one of the reasons why he is struggling so much, but I think we are going to see drivers coming into the pit lane here, as if 11 laps is giving you a puncture and these drivers are on 10 laps of wear, I think you know exactly what that means. We're going to see drivers possibly, I think we might see 1 or 2 try to stretch it to the end of the Grand Prix, but at the same time, I think you really need to be coming in. We saw exactly what happened to Dimas when you get a puncture like that, how much time you lose, how many positions that you lose because of that, and you don't want that happening whatsoever. So yeah, we'll see how these guys play this. But you can see P2 is Noel Carmen, and I've been told that some of the drivers in the chat, at least, they've been telling me that some of the drivers are saving wear. I believe that's some of the engineers who are engineering the guys in the lobby. Obviously, when you're at this level of competition, you need an engineer helping you by your side, making sure you make the right strategy calls, make sure you know when to use ERS, when to push the tires. So a lot of these guys, yeah, in the chat, whoever said it, probably right that you are saving the tires at this stage. That definitely would make the most sense, because you want to make it to the end of the Grand Prix. But it is going to be a struggle. I mean, 11 laps of wear, we saw exactly what happened with Dimas. We'll just have to see how these guys play. And obviously Marples, he hasn't really been saving his tires too much. He's been pushing quite hard to try and find a way past Carmen. He has backed off a little bit now, maybe realizing that the wear is starting to get bad, and he might just wait a few more laps before really going for it. And we can see now, one man who is not taking this risk is going to be Silly Sly Guy. So obviously he's realized that his tires are going to get quite close to puncture territory, so he is going to come into the pit lane for a fresh set of intermediate compound tires. He's not risking that, but he is now down into P16, so it's not been an ideal race for him, you could say. And a shame to see that. Ever since that mistake out of Maggots and Beckett's, he's just been falling and falling, just like we saw with Sprogus after the pits. He's been falling and falling, so see how those two develop. But Ben Marples, yeah, he's definitely slowed it down. He's not being as aggressive here, and just making sure that his tires hopefully make it to the end of the Grand Prix here. We saw what the grip is like. I believe it was Molnar. We watched them through Maggots and Beckett's, and we know what the intermediates are capable of once they start to lose their grip and begin to degrade. So I'm sure all the drivers will be looking to avoid that as best they can. And I think because of that, we're going to see quite a few less moves, but that also means there is a chance of punctures. We now see Harry. He comes into pit lane, and that is the second retirement for Ferrari. Neither of them having a good day at it, which is a shame to see, obviously, but that is how it has turned out for them. So Harry, Hubach and Golo all out of the Grand Prix. I believe Golo crashed out, which obviously caused a safety car, but the two Ferraris both came into the pit lane and retired themselves. So we are on lap 24 of 26, quickly approaching the end of this Grand Prix. And will anyone gain any more positions with all this tyre saving that's going on? We are currently seeing a battle for P14 between City Sly Guy and Jeremy as they go side by side through turn number 6. Might not be for points paying positions, but I'm sure they'll take a battle between themselves, although Jeremy got 5 lap older tyres, so he's going to struggle to keep up with the Williams as City Sly Guy quickly dispatches him. And City Sly Guy might actually try to go for a fast lap of the Grand Prix here, but it is lap 25 of 26, the penultimate lap of this Grand Prix. How are these drivers going to play this now? Violo has slowly but surely been losing time to Carmen, and that can probably be left up to him saving the tyres, I imagine, as he's probably got the best tyre wear out of anyone. Karapi has just overtaken Leo Lund. Leo Lund, I think there was a message at the bottom of my screen. I didn't get to read it, but I think it's because Leo Lund has disconnected from the session. And what a time to disconnect when you were so close to the end of the Grand Prix. He was in P4 looking to score some big points for himself and his team. Such a way to go out of a Grand Prix. Hopefully he can get himself back into the session. But Leo Lund, that is so disappointing to see after being P4. He's done so much in this Grand Prix. He's been consistent. He has not made mistakes. He's made overtakes. He's had the pace to compete at the front. And it gets taken all away from him from poor internet connection. That is probably the most brutal thing you can see in league racing. But here's another brutal thing. Violo is beginning to make mistakes. Is that a puncture? It is a puncture. Our race leader has a puncture. He is now out of contention for the lead in this Grand Prix. And Ben Marples is going to try and take that lead away from Carmen. Could this be a last to first from Ben Marples? It's all going off now. Penultimate lap of the Grand Prix. Carmen with the outside line for turn number 16. That's the inside for turn number 17 and 18. Ben Marples, so he's going for the switchback of dreams as he gets back ahead of Carmen out of the 18th turn. Karapi up to 8 seconds of time penalties. What a shame. It's Violo coming into the pit lane. Leo Lund's AI also boxes for him. But here's another puncture. Carmen's got a puncture. Ben Marples has got a puncture. And this was not the right strategy. And someone should have come into the pit lane. And they all decided to stay out. Not the right strategy at all. I'm trying to keep up with who's got punctures. But Karapi, with 8 seconds of time penalties, might win this one because of the amount of punctures. Does Santa Maria have a puncture? No, he does not. So he's going to move into the podium positions as he flies past these two guys. Meyer does not have a puncture. He is going to fly through. Does, as you can see, overtake both of them, Carmen and Marples. They were battling too hard against each other, and that's what's cost them. I don't know how Violo has gotten a puncture and these guys ahead of him haven't. Obviously, once you get to 75% wear, it's a bit of a luck-based thing, but lucky days indeed for Karapi as he's in P1. And we'll see what happens after the time penalties are applied. It might be Santa Maria taking this one home. It might be Dimas. So I have no idea what the time penalties are. And I'm not going to check because that keeps the surprise going. But Dimas gets a puncture. So he definitely will not be winning this Grand Prix. Santa Maria yet to get a puncture. Meyer does not have a puncture. Molnar doesn't. Marek doesn't. Carmen is still going around with the puncture on his intermediate tires. But it's another puncture in the form of Dimas this time. But it looks like Karapi, he is coming out the final turn. He managed to hang on to these intermediates 13 laps on. Across the line, he gets P1 on circuit, but will that last? Santa Maria, does he have too many seconds of time penalty? Santa Maria gets a puncture across the line, and Santa Maria has won the British Grand Prix by 0.2 of a second. It's FBR Santa Maria for Aston Martin who wins an exciting British Grand Prix. One of the most exciting races I've ever commentated over. Amazing action from start to end and punctures at the end as well. But it's Santa Maria 0.2 of a second after all of that. He gets a puncture across the line and yet he still wins the Grand Prix. What a performance from Santa Maria. You can see it was the left rear, I believe, for Santa Maria that popped at the end. But he has won the Grand Prix, and it feels like from absolutely nowhere. It didn't seem like he was in contention, and It looks like there is an Aston Martin at the top step of the podium, but not the one we thought it was going to be. Here is Santa Maria, your race winner for tonight's Grand Prix, and what a way to end this one. In P2, it is going to be the Mercedes man. He just about held on to that P2 positions. Karapi, even with 8 seconds of time penalties, was still able to get P2. Missing out on that P1 by 0.2 of a second. If Santa Maria's tyre had popped just a second earlier, then the victory might have gone to Karapi. But that is a brilliant end to this Grand Prix. And then it's the McLaren man in P3 getting the podium. It's Meyer who started P11. So it looks like the podium, all 3 drivers on the podium consist of drivers who started outside the top 10. That is quite the statistic in a PC F4 Grand Prix. And wow, I mean, what an end to a race like that. But we'll go through the full order now. So it's Santa Maria who wins the Grand Prix from P15 on the field. Absolutely fantastic. We have Karapi right behind him though, as Meyer takes P3 on the podium. Molnar started P4, finishes P4. Mark, who started P17, gets up to P5. Dimas, who got a puncture, finishes P6. Lilian, he just could not be separated from that P7 position. Started P7, was P7 for most of the Grand Prix, and is now P7. In P8, we have Noel Carman with the puncture. Marples in P9 with a puncture. Alekas in P10. Violo in P11 with a puncture. C. Sligo in P12. Jeremy, Leo Lund, Sprogus, Harry, and Hubach and Golo are your 18 drivers with 3 retirements in that Grand Prix. But what an end to the Grand Prix. And now we can actually take a look and see how is that going to affect the championship standings. So coming into this round, Lillian was our championship leader, but after finishing P7, I don't believe that is going to stand. Meyer, 3 races, and he has not finished outside of the top 4. So bulletproof consistency, you must say, from the McLaren man, as he finishes P3. I think he might be taking the lead of the championship, although, as I say that, the man who won was Santa Maria, and Santa Maria only 6 points behind. And if I calculate the point system correctly, as you can see in the top right, there it is, Santa Maria is actually going to be on level points with Myers. So there you go, as long as there are no post-race penalties. Sprogus, he was in P3 in the championship, didn't start in the last one, won his first Grand Prix, almost got P2 in this one, but I think at the end of the race finished just about inside the top 10, so he'll be falling down the order. Dimas will be falling down the order. Violo really should have won that one, got highly unlucky with the tyre situation. And then our third man on the podium, Karapi, I'm just looking where he is in the standings. Karapi, this was actually his first Grand Prix as a reserve in PCF4, and he has managed to score a P2 position. So it was almost P1 as well. So quite the debut from the reserve man, and that will definitely shoot him up in the championship standings. But after this race, I believe it's Santa Maria and Meyer tied on points heading into round number 4 in the brand new circuit of Qatar. That should be quite an exciting one, hopefully, as I've heard the racing is quite good at that circuit. Hopefully it is. But Meyer and Santa Maria tied on points heading into the 4th round of the season, so very close between those two. But yeah, I mean, I'm going to say my driver of the day now. I have to give a driver of the day, and I think even after all that happened, I think it has to be Violo who gets my driver of the day. Now, he might not have won the Grand Prix, he might not have got a podium, he might not have even finished in the top 5. But still, I mean, the pace that he showed in qualifying in the Grand Prix was absolutely untouchable, and at the end of the day, I think it was luck that lost him the Grand Prix. All the drivers who didn't have their tyres explode, they got lucky, I suppose, since it is a luck-based system once you get to 75% tyre wear. So, yeah, Violo, highly unlucky. So he is going to get my driver of the day, because if the tyres hadn't come to that, he definitely would have won that Grand Prix on pure pace alone. It is definitely very close between him and Marples, but yeah, I mean, Violo, when you put on a performance like that, I have to give props to you. So yeah, Violo is going to be my drive to date, so congratulations to him, and a shame that he wasn't able to get that win. And congratulations to Santa Maria, Karapi and Meyer for getting the podium, and Santa Maria especially for managing to get that win for Aston Martin. It might not have been the Aston Martin we have expected, but Santa Maria will still be very, very happy with that. But I hope you all enjoyed this stream, and this Grand Prix here in Silverstone was definitely one of the more exciting ones that I've seen on any game. F1 23, F1 22 and F1 21. So I hope you all enjoyed this British Grand Prix. I have been your race commentator, more games, and until next time, I will see you then.
Desperately trying to hang on. He's got the inside off. Here he's through on the left hand side. Pumps the apex, gets on the power nicely, and that is job done. Jarno Opmeer now to the last couple of corners now. His finest drive, his greatest drive, and he's done it at the Circuit of the Americas. He returns to the top step of the podium. Once again, the GOAT is back. Jarno Opmeer wins the US